Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bharti from GST Zen. Today's webinar is regarding e-invoicing that would be enabled for businesses whose turnover exceeds 5 crore from 1st of August.
Bharti?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Just before that, a note to participants. Good afternoon. Welcome you all to today's webinar. I see a couple of people have raised the hand. For the interest, I'm just lowering all the attendees' hands. Feel free to raise the hand whenever you want to interact with us by asking a question. I would only say that you put your questions in the Q&A or chat box. We will take up the questions at appropriate time. However, during the session, we would allow the speakers to take up the session so that I'm sure most of your questions will also get answered. And my colleague Bharti, Azhar and Vasist are here to demonstrate both on the theory side and practically the generation of e-invoice from various applications. On this note, welcome you all, and we will begin the session today. Bharti, your screen is not.
One. Okay, is my screen visible now?
Yes.
Okay. So in this session, we would be discussing the basics of e-invoicing and showcasing various methods by which GST Zen can help you in integration of your own software or generation of e-invoices through GST Zen to make your life easier. So these are the topics we would be discussing: basics of e-invoice, some legal provisions, how to deal with NIC, various methods to integrate e-invoicing, generation of value and validation of e-invoice that would be we would be showing in our demo, issue of e-invoice, how do you issue the e-invoice, and various of our offerings. Before moving on to the legal provisions and going into e-invoicing, let me tell you a little bit about GST Zen. GST Zen was started in 2017, mainly as a compliance software. Since then, we have also delved into e-invoicing. We are a GSP ASP. We provide various other services such as return filing, reconciliation reports, and some other tools besides e-invoicing. You can file GSTR 1, 3B, 9, and 9C. You can also get reconciliation reports for comparison between purchase register and GSTR 2A, 2B. Similarly, for GSTR 1 and sales register, PAN level reports, consolidated report where we compare various returns like GSTR 1, 2A, and 3B. You can also get the e-way bill report. There are some tools such as Autopilot. It helps you perform a single function for multiple GST numbers at a time. JSON to Excel conversion, various validators which help to validate your information like GST numbers and HSN. Let's look at some of our numbers. We have more than 30,000 users. Lakhs of reports have been downloaded from our database. We process millions of invoices on average daily, and there are more than 20 crore invoices in our database. Okay, now let's move on to e-invoicing. So why has the government introduced e-invoicing and what impact has it had on Indian economy? When you look at the matrix, ease of doing business, India's ranking has moved from 77 to 63 in 2021 ranking in the ease of doing business because of introduction of e-invoicing. It helps in it reduces it has been observed that it reduces 96% of cost, 80% of time saved, and it makes the process 15 times more efficient if you go with e-invoicing. It also enables better compliance by taxpayers and simplifies audit. What is e-invoicing or electronic invoicing? There is no prior standard under GST or under any statute. This is the first measure of its kind that has been introduced by the government. So this allows interoperability between various systems and various players. So if all of you are using different types of softwares, so if somebody provides you an invoice from their software, you would not be able to integrate it directly to your own ERP. You would have to manually enter all the details. But when you are generating an e-invoice, there is a standard format, a standard schema that is provided by the government. So everybody has to follow it, and that is how the e-invoice is reported to the government portal. So when it gets reported, it also populates into GSTR1, 2A, 2B. So it allows interoperability. You do not have to manually enter it everywhere. Once you generate the e-invoice, it automatically goes to the e-invoice portal. GST portal, it goes to the e-waybill portal, and then it also goes to your GSTR 2A and 2B. So let's look at the legal provisions. So e-invoicing was first introduced on 1st of October 2020. It first went live on October 2020, wherein it was made applicable for businesses whose turnover exceeded 500 crores. It was notified by Central Tax Notification 61/2020. Therein after, the limit has gone down. On 1st of January 2021, it went live for more than 100 crores, then more than 50, and ultimately in the recent cycle, it is proposed to go live on 1st of August 2023 for businesses having turnover between 5 to 10 crore, notified via Central Tax Notification 10/2023. Now let's look at some of the relevant notification and rules. E-invoicing was notified by CGST notification 68/2019. Rule 48 gives the manner of issuing the invoice. So it tells you how the invoice should be issued and various and the rules associated. So Rule 48 sub-rule 4 gives the form of GST INV1. So it says every invoice should follow form GST INV1. So any invoice which does not follow form GST INV1 is not valid, and multiple copies of invoice are not required when you are eligible for e-invoicing. So before e-invoicing, you would have to produce multiple copies of the same invoice. Like for supplier or for transporter, so you would have 3-4 copies of the same invoice you would have to generate. Now that is not required. When you're generating an e-invoice, only one copy is required. By CGST notification 69/2019, common portal was notified. That is www.einvoice1.gst.gov.in, which we also call as e-invoice portal. By notification number 60/2020, the schema was specified. The fields which should be included, which are mandatory, and a set of optional fields for generating e-invoice. This is the standard to be followed by everyone who is generating e-invoice. Recently, some new IRPs have also been introduced. So one of them is owned and operated by the government. Rest 4 are operated by private players. So earlier there was only one common portal, that was e-invoice1.gst.gov.in. Another one by the government is e-invoice2.gst.gov.in. Then you have 3, 4, 5, and 6, all operated by private players. That is your Signet, ClearTax, EY, and IRIS. So you can register on either of these 6 portals to enable yourself for e-invoicing. So for whom is e-invoicing applicable? We have seen that e-invoicing is applicable for taxpayers whose turnover exceeds 5 crore. And then there are some people who are exempted from e-invoicing. Those include SEZ unit, any government department, a local authority, or persons covered by CGST Rule 54. which includes insurer or a banking company or a financial institution, including NBFC goods, transport agency, passenger transportation service, and exhibition of cinematograph films in multiplex screens. So besides these people, everybody is eligible for e-invoicing, provided they have crossed the threshold notified in various through various notifications, central tax notifications, the recent one being for 5 crores. So the persons exempted have been updated as per notification 61/2020. Now this is very important. Which transactions are covered by e-invoicing rule? So for which kind of transactions do you have to generate e-invoices, and for which you do not have to? So here everything that is highlighted in green, you have to generate e-invoices. Those which are highlighted in red are not applicable for e-invoicing. So you have to generate e-invoicing for all taxable supplies to businesses. If you are selling, if you are making sale, B2B sale, you have to generate e-invoice. If you are making B2G, that is also considered B2B, you have to generate e-invoice, as well as e-invoice has to be generated for exports of goods and services. So for all these three type of transactions, you have to generate e-invoices in case of invoice, credit note, and debit notes. So you have to make sure that you know for which type of transaction you have to generate e-invoice and for which type of transaction you do not have to. So for all taxable supplies, invoices, credit notes, and debit notes supplied to a registered person or government, or in case of an export, you have to generate e-invoice. Now, when you're supplying to a customer, that is a B2C transaction, or in case of purchase from URD or import, e-invoicing is not applicable. Plus, you do not have to generate e-invoice for a bill of supply, that is non-taxable supply, a delivery challan, or an ISD invoice. So, to keep it simple, whenever you're making a taxable supply to a registered person, you have to generate e-invoice, and you have to generate e-invoice against credit notes and debit notes associated with those taxable supplies. E-invoicing is not applicable for B2C or any purchases or imports, and in case of non-taxable supplies, your delivery challan and ISD invoice. Now let's move on to registration. How do you enable yourself for e-invoicing? So government by itself would enable everybody whose turnover exceeds 5 crores. If you have been missed out from that list, you can go to the e-invoice portal and enable yourself for e-invoicing. The government has provided a sandbox where you can register and test how to generate e-invoices, what kind of errors you might get, what is the procedure, to make yourself aware of the process and discover any errors that you might face while generating e-invoices. You can register yourself on API Sandbox and test before going live. This trial website is provided for people whose turnover exceeds 100 crore. And the last one is the live portal, e-invoice1.gst.gov.in, where you'd start generating e-invoices from 1st of August in case of 5 crores and above, as well as you can register on 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 portals. This is only one that we have mentioned here. This is the first portal. You can register on others as well. There is some other information and tools provided by the government to make e-invoicing easier. You can generate and see the list of people who are generating e-invoice. If you are buying goods from a particular supplier, you can check whether they are generating e-invoice. If they are, and you have not received an e-invoice, you can ask for the e-invoice, because that is a valid document They have, if they do not generate an e-invoice, it is not valid if they are eligible for e-invoicing. Similarly, you can check the status of e-invoice enablement for your GST number, whether it has been enabled. Then it also provides an Excel, a free tool that you can use to generate e-invoice. You would not need to go to a third party. You can use the offline tool provided by the government to generate the e-invoice. Then it also provides an app to scan the QR code that is there on the e-invoice to verify its validity. Similarly, there is, when you generate an e-invoice, you get a response in the form of an acknowledgement JSON. So you can also use that JSON to verify the validity. Now let's look at the process. How does e-invoicing work? So you can either connect your own ERP through the help of a GST to the e-invoice portal, or you can use some other tool. You can use the offline tool as well to generate the e-invoice. So let's say you are using an ERP and you have connected through a GST to the IRP portal. So from there, the e-invoice JSON would be uploaded and sent to the IRP. There, it will validate the JSON for duplication and other sort of validation, whether the HSN is correct, whether the buyer GST number is correct, your calculations are correct, all of it would be validated. Once it is validated, it will generate the e-invoice. The e-invoice generated, the response that it creates, acknowledgement JSON, would be sent back by the IRP. So you have digitally signed JSON with IRN QR code will be sent back to the seller, that is the ERP. From there, the seller will send the printed e-invoice to the buyer. Once the e-invoice generated by the IRP, if e-way bill is also applicable, it will go to the e-way bill portal. Once that is done, within 3 days of generation, it will go to the GSTR1 and auto-populate there. From there, it will auto-populate in the buyer's GSTR2A. And after filing your GSTR1, it will go to GSTR2B as well. Now moving on, let's look at some of the terms and definitions. So what is IRN? Invoice Reference Number. It is a combination of taxpayer GST number, financial year, document type, and invoice number. So every IRN is a 64-digit alphanumeric number which is used to uniquely identify an invoice. It is a combination of taxpayer GST number, financial year, document type, and invoice number. That is why you cannot use the same invoice number again during a financial year. So if you have generated an e-invoice for document number 5 during 23-24 for an invoice, you will not be able to use the same number again to generate e-invoice for an invoice. So it is only for computers. You can ignore this. This is an example. If your GST number is this, financial year is 1920, document type is invoice, document number 2. Using these 4 parameters, this IRN has been given by the IRP. Invoice registration portal. So as we have just seen a couple of minutes ago, this is the process of generation of e-invoice. So the taxpayer sends the e-invoice in the form of a JSON to invoice registration portal. There it validates, checks for duplication through e-invoice registry. It confirms once it is validated that it is not a duplicate invoice and other validations have been made, the e-invoice gets generated. If e-way bill is applicable, it moves to the e-way bill portal also, and then it goes to the GST common portal. Invoice registration portal is authorized by the government. It is first IRP run by the National Informatics Center, that is NIC. Second IRP is proposed by the government. So it verifies and acknowledges e-invoices. It replies within a blink of an eye. It will only retain your information for 24 hours. So if you generate an e-invoice, it will only keep the information for 24 hours. That is where the window for cancellation also comes. If you generate an e-invoice right now, that is at 3:20. So within 24 hours, if you want to cancel it, you can only cancel it within 24 hours. That is why there's this threshold, because it only maintains the information for 24 hours, beyond which it will not have that information and you would not be able to cancel. This is what a response from IRP looks like. Acknowledgement date, acknowledgement number. Acknowledgement date is the date and time at which you generate the e-invoice. It does not give the invoice date. It is giving the date and time of generation. This is the IRN, 64 characters, signed invoice, and signed QR code. You can use this code to verify the e-invoice. You can use signed QR code to convert it into an image. That is your QR code. The status, whether it's active, or cancelled. If you have generated e-webbill simultaneously, it will give the e-webbill date, number, and the validity of e-webbill. This is a PDF that is given by the government, e-invoice PDF. You can see this is digitally signed invoice. Then you can also see the QR code. You can scan this QR code by the application provided on the e-invoice portal, and you'd get the details of the e-invoice, high level information. It does not give the full information. You can see the IRN, acknowledgement number, and acknowledgement date. Below this, you'd find the details of the invoice. Now, signed QR code. This is digitally signed by NIC. As I mentioned, contains high-level information, high-level parameters, can be used to know authenticity of an invoice. So this is an example of the information you would get if you scan the QR code. You'd get the buyer GST number, you'd get document date, document number, document type, IRN, item count, main HSN code, seller GST number, and total invoice value. So you can scan the QR code and verify the high level parameters of an invoice. This is now, let me tell you a little bit about how GST Zen integrates e-invoicing for your ERP. By taking example of Tally ERP, GST Zen has developed its own TDL, which we install in Tally. My colleague would be showing a demo of it later. By installing that TDL, it enables the user to generate the e-invoice directly from Tally. So you create the invoice in Tally, then by just pressing a button, generate e-invoice, it would send the information to GST Zen Cloud, where it would be converted into JSON and sent to IRP. It will fetch back the information from IRP, and the information would be saved back to Tally. So you just have to press a button in Tally. It will generate the e-invoice and fetch the information. You'll be able to see the QR code, IRN, acknowledgement date, number in the PDF provided by Tally itself. Okay, let's move on to some of the frequent questions that are asked by users. So at what time is the e-invoice required for a particular transaction? So if you are moving goods, so it has to be generated before commencing movement. So before commencing movement, you usually generate e-webbill. So when you are generating e-webbill, the e-invoice has to be generated before generation of e-webbill, or it can be done simultaneously with e-webbill. If you are selling the goods across the counter, it has to be generated before completing the sales. And if you are providing services, it has to be generated before issuing it to the customer. So how do e-way bills work with e-invoices? E-way bills are governed by Rule 138 of CGST rules. E-way bill can be generated simultaneously along with IRA. That is, you can give the command to generate e-invoice along with the e-way bill, or you can generate e-way bill at a later point of time. Let's say if you want to, you generate an e-invoice today, but you are moving goods after 3 days. So I can generate the e-invoice today and generate the e-way bill after 3 days. So IRP supports e-way bill only for invoice. It does not support for credit note and debit note. Also, you should not generate e-way bill before generating the e-invoice, because it will not link the e-way bill to e-invoice then. First, you should generate the e-invoice, then generate the e-way bill, or generate both together. You should not generate e-way bill first and then generate the e-invoice. If you want to cancel the e-invoice, you have to cancel the e-way bill first, then cancel the e-invoice. You cannot cancel the e-invoice without canceling the e-way bill. How to print an e-invoice? You have to print it with IRN and QR code. So a soft copy, a digital display is sufficient for transporting. You do not need to have a hard copy of the e-invoice. How should you send the e-invoice to the recipient? So IRP does not email it to the recipient. You should email it to yourself with the acknowledgement JSON also, so that they can use it to verify your e-invoice. What details of the e-invoice should be saved in your ERP? You should save the acknowledgement number, acknowledgement date, and invoice with the QR code digitally signed by the IRP. Okay. So turnover below 100 crores, until what time can I register an e-invoice? Any time before issuing the invoice. It is recommended that you generate an e-invoice within a week to be compliant with section 31. Earlier, a month back, a time limit had been introduced by the government, which has been rolled back, but it is estimated that it would be introduced again within 3 to 4 months. So you would have a time limit for generation of e-invoice right now. So your e-invoicing would be started from 1st of August, but you would still be able to generate the backdated e-invoice on a later date. Right now, there's no restriction, but we think that it will come soon. It has already been enabled once, but it was rolled back. We think that it will be enabled again. It is speculation at this point, but the government has said it will bring it back within 3 to 4 months. So can you cancel an e-invoice? Yes, the e-invoice can be cancelled within 24 hours of creation. So if you are generating it now, you can only cancel it within 24 hours of generation. Can you modify an e-invoice? No, it cannot be modified. So once you generate an e-invoice, there's no way for you to modify anything. You cannot modify HSN, you cannot modify taxable value or address or anything. So if you want to modify it, there's no option. The only option is for you to cancel it. And once you have cancelled it, you cannot use the same invoice number again as well. So let's say you have generated invoice number 5. Instead of giving quantity as 12, you gave it as 21 and you discovered your mistake. Now there's no way for you to modify it. The only option is for you to cancel it. So once you cancel it, you cannot use number 5 again. You'll have to generate a fresh e-invoice with number 6 and the correct information. What if I have generated an e-invoice by mistake and it is not cancelled within 24 hours? Sometimes you do not discover your mistake within 24 hours. So what should you do then? So you should cancel the invoice within your books of accounts. And while filing GSTR1, you should not report the invoice. The other option is you can rectify your mistake using credit note and debit note. E-invoice technical aspects. So this is preparation of e-invoice as per schema. This is more essential for software developers, communication with IRP, sending of e-invoice and receiving of e-invoice. So again, this is the process of e-invoicing through GST Zen. So GST Zen provides an additional benefit of emailing the e-invoice PDF when you generate it. So IRP would not email it for you, but GST Zen provides an option of auto emailing or generation of e-invoice. So this is the e-invoice schema. There are various sections. There are mandatory sections, then there are optional sections. So let's look at those. So in this image, all the mandatory sections are shown. So your seller details, your buyer details, line item, document details, and the total amounts. So these are all the mandatory sections for an e-invoice. For example, in a seller, you have to provide, as a seller, you have to provide your seller GST number, your legal name, your address, your city, your state, and your PIN code. So these are all the mandatory fields in your mandatory section. There are optional fields in the mandatory section as well. So let's say you want to provide your mobile number and email. You can provide that in your seller details as well. But those two fields are not mandatory. Now these are some of the optional fields like reference details, customer PO number, customer PO date. Those also you can provide. Payment terms, if you want to mention that the amount has to be paid within a certain time period, or you want to provide your bank details, those are all optional details that you can provide while generating the e-invoice. Then if you are shipping to a different address or supplying your goods from a different address, you have to provide shipping address and dispatch from address as well. If you are exporting, you will be providing export details as well. There are mandatory sections and optional sections, as well as within mandatory sections, you have fields and optional fields. Okay, this is all in detail. So we'll be providing this presentation to you in an email, so you can go through it in detail. So now let's move on to what GST Zen is offering. So these are all the things that GST Zen is offering. So you can generate e-invoices through Excel. We provide two methods under that: secured folder and drag and drop. You can enter your information in the Excel provided by GST Zen and upload it to GST Zen. That will provide you an option to generate e-invoice. Then we also provide the service of directly linking your database with GST Zen, that is your direct database access and ODBC. We have custom-made solutions for Tally and SAP. We provide APIs which the software developers can use to link their own software with GST Zen, so that they can generate directly from the software. They would not need to come to GST Zen to generate their e-invoice. Directly, you can link your own software to GST Zen. So now my colleague would be showing a demo of the software, how various solutions, he'll show various solutions that are there in GST Zen, and how you can generate through API or billing software or through Excel.
Thank you, Bharti. So I'll be sharing my screen.
Utkarsh, before we go.
Yes, sir. Sir, you are on mute, sir.
Utkarsh, before we go ahead in taking the demo,
Yes,
there are some questions in the chat box which we have answered, and still a couple of people are raising the hand. Maybe we'll allow them to ask the question and we'll take up the demo.
Sure, sir. Sure. I will allow them to talk.
people have raised a hand, we have sent you a prompt for unmuting yourself. You can unmute and ask your question. Go ahead, Reshma. So there is someone by Charlie Server, someone by Rahul. You can ask your question, please. So there's a question by Sri asking, is this vehicle number mandatory in E-Invoice? Answer is no, only the level we need the vehicle number. Then trade is asking, last year turnover was 9 crores. This year will be less than 5 crores. Do I have to register for the E-Invoice? 2 points which I would like to mention here. The turnover which Bharti has mentioned is applicable for PAN based. So you have to apply the turnover of all the GST numbers. And this turnover is in any of the previous financial year starting from 2017-18. So in any 1 year, if your turnover has crossed 5 crores, you have to apply this. Having said that, this is a PAN-based turnover. The common mistake that I have noticed in the earlier implementation is head office whose turnover is high has taken care of the legal requirements, while the branch is accounting is done by some different accountant, and the branch turnover has never crossed, say, a crore, while their knowledge, awareness, compliance is low, and they are doing the accounting in that state. So no one has educated the balances to do the compliance, and that is where the errors were happening. So I would request you to take care of this. Thanks for raising this question, Prem. Next, there is one question, I see Samsung SM request people to change your name so that we can appropriately address you. Does the invoice is required for selling non-taxable goods? The answer is no. It is required only where there is a tax liability that is applicable. Some of the question I have put it in the answer itself. Setur is asking, should we generate e-invoice for B2C sales? Answer is no, it is applicable. Taxable supply to a B2B is applicable. Kushal's question, we are a GTA having previous year turnover more than 50 crores. We are charging GST and a forward charge. Are we required to generate an e-invoice? And Kushal, if you have noticed, Bharti has clearly given an exemption in her slide number 11, where she has said the persons who are already covered under CGST rule 54, which one of the person is goods transport agency. Hence, e-invoice applicability is not there for your business. Can we make a backdated e-invoice? Answer is yes. Today during the demo, our colleague would be showing you how a backdated would be doing. How we do the cancellation in the same way where you are generating the invoice, cancellation happens in the same mode. Please share the contact details so that we can get in touch. At the end of the session, we will be sharing you our contact details, Anuji. How do we generate e-invoice in selling material to SCZ unit? Pravinji, clearly doesn't matter whether you are selling materials to SCZ or a DTA. Both are one and the same, it's just change in the GST number. Prakash is asking question, should the seal and signature, physical signature or a digital signature is required on the invoice? Answer is yes. If you notice the rule 46, they mention where the tax invoice rules are there. Subclause Q says signature is mandatory, so you still have to do a signature on the e-invoice. Can we raise an e-invoice for 0% tax rate? Theoretically not required. Practically, even if you raise, portal will accept, you can raise the invoices. How backdated invoices get generated? There's nothing called backdated. The transaction date is, let's say, 5th July is today's date. Let's say transaction date will be 1st July. That's the only thing. We call it as backdated. Can we have raised a credit note in the month of June 23, but it is not reflecting in the GST portal? I would request you to connect with me personally. How can we raise e-invoice for export supplies? Bhavin, you will only mention it as a 0 rated supply, so portal will permit generating the invoice. In selling to SEZ unit, tax is not included, should we generate even the same? Pravinji, there is a workaround that has been given. If you are making a supply with payment of the tax, you raise the tax amount, again reduce the tax amount by way of say discount, so that in the portal it goes as export with payment of taxes. And if you are not raising any taxes, you don't need to mention any taxes. Portal will permit you to generating without any taxes. How do we e-invoice for export of services? Both services and goods are same process. Maybe when you see the demo, you'll get an idea. The next question, we are having a proprietary firm. Are we, okay, there is a question that came up where there is a death happened of the proprietor. When there is a death of the proprietor, what happens when a new entity is formed? Please note, when a new entity is formed, upon death of the proprietor, the new entity do not have any turnover. Hence, e-invoice would not be applicable for the new entity. Next, we are using our own software. We have our own in-house software. How can we merge the e-invoice software and our software? The GST Zen Microtech Rohini is asking this question. GST Zen has APIs. You can just consume our APIs, and you can take the integration of your ERP with the government portal, which Utkarsh would also be showing a demo how to generate using API. B2C others required to generate e-waybill? Answer is no, you don't need to generate an e-waybill. Why the amount gap in GSTR1 B2B and summary? Avinash ji, I think your question is not clear. Samuel is asking, if I create a credit note in the month of June, and if I file e-invoice credit note in June month, should it be reflected on the GST portal? Yes, it would be reflecting before filing GSTR1, whatever the e-invoices you are doing. It would be reflecting in this June month. For example, today, 5th July, I am doing an e-invoice or a credit note dated 30th June. When you do an e-invoice today, even though it is in July, it would be updated back in the June month GSTR1 of yours. Tushar is asking to type, maybe you can send the question, I'll type it. Can I use both type sign, digital sign manually? Both type of signatures are permitted, Pravi. Rajat ji is asking, e-waybill generated while sending the dispatch of the goods. If an e-waybill is already created for a particular invoice, can we later e-invoice for it? Yes, the system will permit you to do the e-invoice at a later point in time. B2C invoice QR code, is it must? B2C invoice doesn't has a QR code owing to section 31A permitting accepting the digital payment. As of now, this procedure is made available to SSCs whose turnover is more than 500 crores. Only they are applicable to have B2C QR code. How to create a backdated invoice? Biswajit Goshi, we will be seeing that live. I have answered all the questions, and people who have raised their hand, they have asked any question. Maybe I will be muting them back. You can take up, we can take up the question later appropriately. Yes, we will go to the demo and continue to put your questions. We will take up the questions again after the demo. Utkarsh, over to you.
Okay, sir. I'll be sharing my screen.
Yes, please.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Utkarsh. So today I will be showing you 3 modes of integration, which GST Zen offers, as mentioned by my colleague Bharti. And I would be showing how it's very easy through GST Zen to generate new e-invoices. So this is the home page of GST Zen. As you log in into it, this is the first page that you would land to. So it gives you a brief idea about the GSTNs that are managed by you. That is the GSTNs that you have added in your account. So let's say if I select this GST number, it contains the list of the taxpayer name, the GSTR1 details, 3B9, and the state. Some basic details are given for the GST number. So if I click on this, it would be taking me to that GST number, that particular GST number. So first mode of integration that I would show you is our billing software. So for that, you have to click on this, create e-invoice, and then you have to enter the document number. The unique feature of this billing software is that it auto increments whenever you create a new invoice. Let's say you have a pattern like 23, 24 and some of your company name. The next time when you will create an e-invoice, it would auto increment. So this is how the document number works. Now I would be entering the document date. This I would take today's date. The document type is invoice and some basic details. Now the supplier details would be automatically be present because we have entered into that particular GST number. So the supplier details would be there. Now let's say if you want the recipient details. So if I type a recipient which is already stored. So as you can see that all the details get auto-filled. It means that the data with respect to this particular GST number is already stored in our customer master. Similar, you can also have your customer supply master where you can have the details. So you do not need to manually enter every time the details like legal name, trade name, address one, location, and all those things you need not enter again and again. So similarly, you can have a master of the line items like the chairs or whatever whatever goods and services you deal with. So all those line items can be present there, and you can make some modifications as well if you want, and that would be reflected accordingly in the total amount value. Now these contains also some TCS charges, reference details, some additional details which can be filled as per your requirement, and then I would save the invoice. Now it gives me an option to review it. So you would see that I have entered into that particular tax invoice, which I just created. Now you can see that this says e-invoice not yet generated. It means that it's simply an e-invoice object, not an actual e-invoice. To create an e-invoice, we have to click on this button. So as you can see, the details have appeared. The IRN details, the acknowledgement date, the acknowledgement number all have appeared. Now, if you want to see this e-invoice in a form of PDF, we have a button of PDF where we can click this. See, now the seller details that we had entered, the Clouds and Software Labs, the buyer details, Acadian C plants, and the details of the invoice, whatever we had mentioned in the billing software is appearing. Additional to that, the IRN details which were present for this e-invoice is also being reflected in this particular e-invoice. So this is how you create an e-invoice with GST Zen's billing software. Now, if you want to generate an e-way bill also with this particular e-invoice, then you have to click on this generate e-way bill. Then you would enter the vehicle details. I would enter some vehicle details. And then some necessary fields which are required to generate e-way bill. And you would see that even e-way bill is now created. How you can see that? Because you would get this field, e-way bill number, date, and valid up to. If I click on this PDF again, you would see certain changes that have appeared. Now I would see an additional row that has been added, which is e-way bill number, e-way bill date, valid till, and the vehicle number, which I just entered. So this e-invoice basically contains both the e-invoice details as well as the e-way bill details. But if you want an e-way bill PDF, you can click on that. And then you would get the e-way bill PDF, which contains the QR code, the approximate distance, the generated time, the e-way bill number, and you can verify the details that we had entered in the billing software are same. I had made it to 2000. You can see that all these details are there. Since we had not mentioned the transporter name and transporter ID and transdoc number, it's not appearing. It's not appearing in the e-way bill PDF. But since we had entered the vehicle number, the mode, and from where it is being shipped to, all these details we had entered, it is coming in the e-way bill PDF. So this becomes our first mode of e-invoice integration. Now our second mode of e-invoice integration would be through Excel. So then again, I would go into that particular GST number from which I want to create the e-invoice. I would click on this e-invoicing button, and then I would click on this GST Zen Excel full. Now, as you see that there is a download Excel template button. It is basically the default template that GST Zen provides to all its customers, where the users can enter the details of the sales invoices, and it also has some of the additional details which would help you to generate e-invoice. So I have already opened one of such sheet. So this is how that format looks like, which contains the document type, the document date, all the invoice level details, even the supplier details, the recipient details, the ship to details. And the unique feature about this is that it also gives you what column is mandatory and what is optional, because users usually, when they are starting with e-invoicing, they have a confusion in their mind that which fields are necessary for the e-invoice schema and which is not. So we have very carefully categorized all those fields which are present in the e-invoice into two parts, that is mandatory and optional. If we move to the next sheet, it is the sales invoice sheet. So sales invoice sheet is the master sheet where you enter the details of e-invoices, and this invoice is then fed to the GST Zen software, and it helps you to generate the e-invoice. As you would notice that some of the headers in the sales sheet are in bold. It means that they indicate that these are the mandatory fields. So you do not have to refer every time the about sheet. You can always see by the nature of the text that is mentioned that if it's bold, it is a mandatory field that you need to provide in the for generating the e-invoice. The last sheet that we need to cover is the master data. So here it would show that since I have downloaded for that particular GST number, it would give me a list that this is the allowed GST number that is allowed from this sheet if we can generate the e-invoice. Similarly, we have some details like state code, UQC code for your reference, because this is sometimes a confusing part, like what unit quantity should go in the UQC code. So everything is mentioned here. Also the transaction type, as Bharti and Venusri was explaining. So if what is the transaction type, depending on whether it's B2B or deemed exports or SCZ or it's an export, depending on that, the transaction type has also to be entered into the JSON schema. So that has to be entered in the sales sheet. So it provides a reference to that as well. Also, we have a document type. Let's say if you want to raise the credit note, the debit note. So just by changing the document type, you can create the credit note as well as the debit note. And last but not the least, you have the country codes and the country name to get a reference, and it's especially helpful for the export invoices. So after giving you a brief idea of what this is basically how our Excel works. So I would just show you a demo. So I would just click on this and I would upload one of already prepared Excel sheet. Now I have uploaded the Excel sheet, which I had prepared. Now give it some time. It would bifurcate the errors and the e-invoices which are present in the Excel. So as you can see that there is one error that is showing in the Excel. It means that it is showing this webinar bulk 109, the document number. It's already generated. So it's actually helpful for the people who do not have a track of whether these invoices are generated or not. So GST Zen clearly bifurcates these invoices which are to be generated and which are not in two parts. And you can see all the invoices which are eligible for generating e-invoices would be listed here with the details, the basic line level details, the customer details, the customer name, the invoice number, and the invoice date. So to convert them into e-invoice, you have to just click on this button. And before that, let me show you how an e-invoice looks like before being an e-invoice. So you can see that there is no QR code, there is no IRN details, there is no acknowledgement number. So let's go back and I will click on this. Yes, upload e-invoices. And slowly you would notice that this yellow mark has slightly changed into this green mark. So it indicates that the e-invoices has been generated. Now, if I go into any of the invoice, let's say the first invoice, I would see that I land into the same page, the sales register, where I had generated through the billing software. So sales register in all our integration becomes a central repository for all the methods of integration that we are doing. So whether you connect through our billing software or through Excel, all the invoices can be found out in sales register. So if I click on the PDF again, you would see that the IRN details, the acknowledgement number, and the QR code, which were not appearing before, have now appeared. So this shows the transition of a normal invoice into an actual e-invoice. So now I would show you one more integration, which is our API integration. So this API integration is essentially useful for all the ERP developers who want to in a custom way integrate to our integration of e-invoicing and want to send the request. So basically, this is the JSON schema that is prescribed by the NIC, Government of India, and has this document details like seller details, the buyer details, all these details are present and to be sent in the form of JSON to this link that endpoint that we have provided. For the headers, for the authorization, we take the headers of basically the token that is present in the account and we authorize in that way. If I send that, I get a response of IRN generated, and you can see the acknowledgement time, acknowledgement date, what it is. So you can verify that we have generated it now. We also have a details like the signed QR code link and the invoice PDF URL link. So if you want to see this, we have to just prefix it with my.gstzen.in. I'll show you how it works. So basically my.gstzen.in and then paste. So you would see that same kind of format, what we had seen in the initial two modes of integration. We are seeing it here, the IRN details and the acknowledgement number and the acknowledgement date. Even the QR code is also appearing. And if you want to see the basically the QR code, that is also present here in the PNG format. You can download the QR code as well. Similarly, if you want to cancel the invoice, I will be just copying that invoice number so as to show you. So in this time, the endpoint will change slightly and we would add a cancel at the end, but everything else, the body would be same and the headers, the authorization, everything would be same. So I would just change this document number. It would be showing that IRN is cancelled now. Now you can see that the IRN status from Gen, it has become can. And also the eVable, so the invoice PDF URL also, if you would see, it would become cancelled. Now our last mode of integration is our Excel tool that will help you to generate an e-invoice, whichever GST numbers are present basically in your account. So let's say
I just want to pause here.
Yes.
In fact, this Excel tool is a new development that has happened based on the request that has come up, wherein the users do not want to, it could be multiple scenarios where there is less access to the browsers, or you have your own challenge with your own custom ERP. Maybe members, I would like to pay attention to this Excel tool, wherein on the top of the screen you can see there is a simple one more button that has been added called GST Zen, where you only have two buttons: generate e-invoice, cancel invoice. So nothing needs to be done. So there is a data entry there and automatically invoice which gets generated and which you will be able to see. Maybe for the ease, what is the invoice number here, Utkarsh?
That is test webinar 4. I will change it to 5, sir.
Yeah, maybe if you can say test webinar 5 JUL something, so that we can see the invoice also, so that we can relate to it.
Okay, I will make it 5 and then maybe or July.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. So now let's generate an invoice. And some of the people were asking how to do a backdated invoice. Make it the invoice date as 30th June 23.
30th June.
Yeah, 30th June 23. Yeah. So
Okay.
generation of invoice is this simple. What he has done, a data entry. Who is the taxpayer? Meaning I am the supplier. Who is the customer? My invoice number, invoice date. Just come to the right side.
Okay.
Right side of the Excel.
Excel. Okay. Excel. Yeah, yes.
HSN code, the description, taxable value, tax rate, and amount. So this is the basic information which has been entered. Okay, which is typically there for any information. And assuming that if you do not provide the details of the buyer and the seller, the address and other whatever is the details that are saved in the master database, that would be taken and it would be generated. Go ahead and generate it, please.
Okay, sir. So I would click on this generate, and this pop-up would appear. I would enter the username. For security purposes, I'm not showing you this in the form of star. I'm showing it, but for yours convenience, it would be there. So as I enter and click on submit, it would say that login is successful and invoice is uploading to GST Zen, and you would see that the details have appeared. Okay. There's some.
The number, it has too many characters. It can only have 16 digits.
Okay, so yeah, it is giving that error. So I will make it 5 only, sir.
Remove webinar.
Okay. Okay, so let me generate it again.
And friends, whenever there is an error, you will get that error description. So you got to go to the error description and act accordingly. Here it says this, you have exceeded the limit. So that was the error description. Now, so people always ask that how much time it takes to generate an invoice. It's a fraction of a second. You just press that button, invoice got created. You can see IRN acknowledgement number, everything which is from the government portal. Okay. Yeah. And there is a link. You can just copy this link and show the URL.
Yeah, yeah, sir, I will show you. So yeah, as you can see, the date for today and the timing, as I had mentioned, this dates, the test webinar.
Hold on the screen there. So yeah. if you can notice that since the e-waybill details were given, e-waybill also has been generated, and it got generated now today's date. So on 5th July 23, the invoice got generated, right? So that's how the portal automatically does it. Now, since the billing details and the buyer and seller details, since we have not updated, it has taken from the master, whatever which we have and saved in the database, it is picking from that. Just scroll down, you also have the e-waybill details and tax related details.
Yeah. We have also this details present. 1 second, let me copy this. So 1 second. PDF. So if I copy this link here. You can see the e-waybill PDF is also coming as per the date and the time that we have generated.
So,
yeah.
Here again, you can see the e-waybill which is generated today on 5th July at 4 p.m. and it is valid till 13th July. How? The distance is approximately 1,428 kilometers. So every 200 kilometers is 1 day. So it has calculated basis this the additional 8 days, and it has added to the today's date and showing the validity. So that's how system does automatic calculation of it.
So that's it for my demo. Now Vashisht will be doing the demo for Tally.
Yeah, before again Vashisht takes up, let's see if there are any questions that are not answered. Month-end invoices shown in the same month or next month. Avinash ji, I would say that whichever the period, ideally whatever is the invoice date is what that is the date. So today on 5th July, you are raising an invoice for 30th June permitted, which we have seen live now. We are e-invoicing the SCZ exemption, but in the GST portal shows auto population failed. What is the solution, Samulji? I would request you to connect to me offline because didn't understand. It could be a more specific question. Any zero rated supply is a zero rated supply. E-invoice is applicable. Same invoices are missed to raise. Some invoices are missed to raise for invoices. We should be uploading manually. If it is missed for generating invoice, generate now. So there is no bar as of now for generating backdated invoice. Is it applicable for B2C? Prakashji, I think I have answered this. E-invoice is not applicable for B2C. Hi, sir. I'm waiting for your request to my query in the text anonymous. I don't know. I will answer all the questions. Too much back noise. Okay, I think taken care. We need to transport our products from Kolachi CFS to. We face struggles from sales tax authorities while transporting our products. The problem is we mentioned CFS address as the delivery address, but in the bills, but the place is not included in our GST portal. They insist that we have to add CFS portal in the GST, else we have to pay penalty. Senthurji, there is no requirement. What is required in the e-web bill is dispatch from and ship to. Bill to or bill from is your locations. Dispatch from and ship to could be any locations. We can take up offline. We have given in our chat the contact details. You can always reach to us, and we will assist you in answering this. We are imported. Once the import container comes from the port to go down, we are unloading immediately. We supply to Bombay, Delhi, Calcutta. So our operation people early morning go down and arrange supply. So we prepare invoices in the previous day, in the next day. How can we prepare e-invoice? Okay, here portal allows you to do a backdated invoice. Portal will not allow you to a post-dated invoice. So ideally, you need to have someone in your office who can take care of, because today it is like anyhow, Vasist would be showing a demo. Maybe I think it would be a right situation. You will do a data entry. You will give an access to generate e-invoice to someone. So Vasist will be showing you where you will automatically have the entries which is already done. You just need to press a button. E-invoice gets generated automatically. Can we make e-credit note for the month of March today? Answer is yes. E-credit note can be today's date. Santur, I have answered your question, so I'm removing it from the chat. Kindly show e-invoice for multiple products in a single invoice. Rashmira, maybe we can show Vasist when you are doing a tally data entry. Maybe enter 2 line items instead of 1 line item, so that they get a idea of how multiple lines possible. In this demo, invoice date is 20th October, but e-invoice date is 5th July. How would it be reflecting in GST-R1? That's the portal takes care of it. As long as if you are filing, if you have already filed your October return, it would not go anywhere. It would only e-invoice get generated. That's it. Is any error coming while GST-R1 submission? There's no error coming. But in our case, e-invoice shows next month, not in the same month. Avinash, not possible. E-invoice would only show up the document date. If the document date is June, it would show up in June GST-R1. Nirmal Sahu, we are doing export and domestic supplies of ready-made garments. At present, we are using separate invoice for both export and domestic. We will make e-invoice. Can we use the separate series? Perfect, no problem. There is no requirement. It should be continuity. How can I contact you offline? Samuel, we have given it in the chat, and I'm also putting it in the response. You can look at our thing. Rashmi Rao is asking, okay, Rashmi, is it multiple products possible in Excel? Yes, it is possible. You can reach to us. We will demonstrate how it is sharing you our coordinates. What's the correct way to generate B2B e-way bill for return or repair when the invoice is generated on SAC basis? Raj, e-way is for movement of the goods, invoice is for the service. Even though supply is service, but the material is moving, e-way has to be generated. Can we modify the document date for e-invoice? Once the invoice is generated, there is no way you can modify the document. But before generation of the invoice, you can change any content and push it to the IRP for generation of the e-invoice. Okay, I have exceeded my time. Pardon me, but there are questions that have come, so I have to answer. We will go to the demo of Tally by Vasist. Yes, Vasist.
Yes, sir. I'll just be presenting my screen.
So, friends, I would like you to notice this carefully. Firstly, we are doing a demo from Tally ERP9 and not Tally Prime. Reason Tally Prime has its own feature of generating e-invoice, but there are still people who have earlier version of the Tally ERP9 where Tally doesn't permit you to generate an e-invoice. So you can use GST Zen utility to generate e-invoice. That is point number one. If you are using Tally Prime and you choose to use GST Zen e-invoice services, the process is same. On the screen, you can see after the display button and before the quit button at the end, there is a button called GST Zen. A new button like this gets added both in the Prime and the ERP9. The process is same, but for the convenience, we are showing the demo from the ERP9. Yes, Vasisht.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vasishtha from GST Zen. Today, I'll be showing you a demo on how to create e-invoice and e-way bill through Tally. As Venu sir told, before that, you need to be installing a plugin called TDL. When it is installed to your Tally, you'll be getting this GST Zen tab to your gateway of Tally. And then you'll be able to generate e-invoice and e-way bill. B2B e-invoice. And here, e-invoice register, e-invoice generated, e-invoice pending and cancelled. E-invoice register is the place where all your entries, the sales entries would be present. You can see these entries are indicated in different colors. Each color has a significance. The black color or the plain one tells that it is a normal invoice, not a e-way bill or a e-invoice is generated for it. And the green color indicates that both e-invoice and e-way bill is generated for this bill. And the blue color indicates that only the e-invoice is generated without the e-way bill. And the red color indicates that there is a mistake while making the entry. I'll just show you what is the mistake. You can see it in the status bar, error GST number is invalid. So this entry is shown in red color. And now I'll just be passing the entry and show you how the e-invoice and the e-way bill is generated and cancelled. So to enter a sales entry, I need to go to accounting vouchers and then pass a normal sales entry.
Vasisht, I'm not able to hear you. I'm not sure whether
Hello?
it's my end.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
Sir, am I audible now, sir?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the application which is provided by GST Zen, where you can select the state. For example, if you have branches in different states, all of them, for all the branches, the e-way bill and the e-invoice can be generated through a single company here. So primary, I've set it as Karnataka. I'll just go with it. I'll set the party name. Intrastate sales. Then commodity. I'll enter the quantity here. Yeah, here you can see provide GST e-way bill details. If you want a e-way bill, you can give it as yes or no. So if you want a e-way bill, you give it as yes. And here only the vehicle number needs to be provided and rest all will be calculated by our software. I'll just give a vehicle number here. And then I'll save this entry. Now let's see how we can generate e-way bill and e-invoice for this entry created. I have to go back to GST Zen and then e-invoice register. So this is the entry which I've created. Once. This is the entry which I've passed. I'll just select this entry. And on the right hand side, you can see upload e-invoice, generate e-way bill, export JSON. I'll just give a command as upload e-invoice. Now automatically you can see here the IRN number is generated, acknowledgement number, acknowledgement date, everything is generated. And in the status also you can see IRN generated and e-way bill also generated. You can also see this in a PDF form. If you give a command as print, this can be seen in the PDF form where IRN number, acknowledgement date, and the QR code, everything is present here. Now let's see how this invoice can be cancelled.
Yeah, before you cancel, so there was a question someone asked, I will be doing the data entry and I want someone to carry the e-invoices. So generating e-invoice is that simple. They just enter this e-invoice register, select those invoices, press a button, invoice gets generated. Yeah. Please go ahead on cancellation.
Yeah, so for cancellation, you need to go to e-invoice generated and select your invoice. And one thing you have to keep in mind is before cancelling the e-invoice, first the e-way bill has to be cancelled. Only then the e-invoice can be cancelled. So first I'll give a command as cancel e-way bill. Now the e-way bill is cancelled. I'll just show you here. You can see in the status bar, e-way bill is cancelled and the IRN number is still there. Now I'll select this and give a command as cancel e-invoice. So as soon as the invoice got cancelled, it vanishes from here and it goes to the e-invoice cancelled column. Here I can see that invoice, IRN cancelled, and then e-way bill also cancelled. And as my colleague Bharti had told before, e-way bill e-invoice which is generated can be cancelled only within 24 hours. After 24 hours, it cannot be cancelled. So I'll just show you with the invoice which is created before, whether it can be cancelled or not. Here you can see, I'll just select two invoices here, one on 28th, which is last week, and the other one is today, that is 5th. I'll just select these two and then give a command as cancel e-invoice. Yeah. So you can see in this invoice, cannot cancel, IRN generated more than 24 hours. So as I told you, after 24 hours, the e-invoice cannot be cancelled. It has to be cancelled within 24 hours. And the e-invoice generated can also be Here on the right hand side, you have an option of view online. If you want to verify it with our GST Zen website, you can select the invoice and give a command as view online. In any browser, Google Chrome or anything, and you get a PDF, IRN number, e-way bill number, e-way bill date, and validity date, vehicle number, and the QR code, everything can be seen here. So this is how you create and cancel e-invoice and e-way bill through Tally. Now my colleague Azhar will be giving a demo on how to generate and cancel standalone e-way bill.
Yeah.
This is also an important part where I want you to pay attention, because sometimes you would need to generate an e-way bill. From 15th July of this month, there is a two-factor authentication coming in. When you go to the e-way bill portal and do a data entry, the chance of errors that happen, and error is human, right? But unfortunately, in the e-way bill, if you make an error, the penalty under section 129 is 200% of the tax. Assuming someone is carrying a goods worth 1,18,000 rupees tax, by mistake there is a small error. Instead of putting the name as Venugopal, and I've written Venkatraman, and the system automatically picked Venkatraman address. So, but while carrying, someone saw that no, you are supposed to go to Venkatraman, you are going to Venugopal and doing a wrong delivery. The officer can on the spot levy a penalty of 36,000 rupees. While the tax amount was 18,000 rupees, and on a whole transaction you might max do a 20% margin, 20,000 rupees, the penalty is high. So we also have an additional feature where e-invoice is not applicable. You have to do e-way bill only. Where is the possibility? If you are making a supply to an unregistered person, there is no requirement of e-invoice. You need to do e-way bill. Or it could be a situation where I am moving the goods, like someone asked in the question that I am sending it for the job work. It is an SSC code. Should I need to do an e-way bill? The answer is yes. You are moving the goods on delivery challan. Even there you would need it. And this add-on button which Azhar is showing is helpful for all those to automate the process and ensure there are no human errors. Azhar, over to you.
Yeah. So hi everyone. This is Azhar from GST Zen. Let me just present my screen. So hope my screen is visible now. So all of you might ever, as Venu sir mentioned. So for some cases, the e-way bill is mandatory, but the invoice is not required for that particular transaction. So let's say for an example, you are selling some goods to one end customer, which is actually B2C sales. So for which e-way bill is required, mandatory, but the invoice is not applicable for the transaction. So in such cases, we would be generating the e-way bill without the help of the support of the e-invoice. So let me just show you how we could handle all these scenarios from the Tally with the help of GST Zen utility. So this is the software. You can enter that. So here you have to choose if you want to generate the standalone e-way bill. So let me just select here. Also, you can choose that e-way bill generation option. So these are the invoices, as you can see, live invoice, so that you can understand how it would work actually. So let me just select the customer here. As you can usually you will mention the quantity, so I have mentioned the quantity as well. So you can enable this e-way bill option where you can provide the vehicle number. This is the mandatory field for to generate the e-way bill for the particular invoice. I just enable the option. So you just directly come to the transporter details. Also, you can provide the vehicle number. So I have saved that invoice details. You can also see the invoices from the GST Zen module. You can go to e-way bill and e-way bill generic. So as you can see, this is what the invoice which I have created now. Also, if you want to generate any multiple line items, that is also available. So what I can do, I can select, I can generate the e-way bill for this particular 15/7 e-way bill demo. Also one delivery note, delivery schedule. So I have selected both these two invoices, and let me just click on the generate e-way bill. So now it is getting generated. The fraction of a second it would happen. So now the responses is coming from going from the tally to government portal. Now we are receiving the responses back to the tally. So as you can see, earlier it was in that black color. Now it has been changed to green, which is mentioning that the e-way bill has been generated for that particular invoice without the help of IR. So as you can see, this is what the e-way bill number which is generated. If you want to see the PDF preview, I can also show you that format of the PDF. So this is the invoice. You can see the e-way bill number in the invoice itself. Also, it has generated the B2C payment QR code since it is the consumer unregistered dealer. So this is where you can generate the standalone e-way bill. Also, we have an option to update the part B. So let's say for an example, if the vehicle got breakdown or some puncture, so where we can update the part B details also, that is also available from that GST Zen tally. So in that, what you have to do, you can click on that, select the same voucher. You can change the vehicle number from that transporter details. We just provide some other vehicle numbers. 675. I have saved the invoice details. I have selected the voucher now. Then I am just clicking on the update part B. So this bill gets only updated on the part B, so transporter details. There is no any changes with that validity. Okay, so we have to mention the place from also. If in case any errors occurs, it will display the errors so that we can easily understand what is the errors actually. So as you can see, with the help of one single clicking one button, the part B details also updated from the tally. So no need to go to portal and do the changes every time. So this is the utility where you can make it from the tally itself. Also, if you want to cancel the e-way bill, that is also available. You can extend the validity. So as of now, we can't extend since it has been created now. You can only extend before or after the 8 hours of the time. So that is also available from the tally. So yes, sir, that's it from my side.
Perfect. Thank you, Azhar. And we have answered all the questions that have come up in the Q&A box. In case if you still have some question that is unanswered, maybe you can raise hand. We will unmute you and we can take up the questions. Of course, this session is recorded. We'll share you a copy of this session recording and also the presentation for today. All right. I think we have answered all the questions. There's a couple of questions coming up in the Q&A. Thank you. I got it. Nirmal, we are selling goods to overseas buyers and dispatch to Navasheva port to our CHA. What should be our bill to and ship to? So for the purpose of e-way bill, the ship to will be till Navasheva port. In the billing address, you will be having the end customer address because e-way bill is required the shores of the Indian borders. So in the e-way bill, dispatch location is from wherever it is moving. Dispatch from is yours. Ship to is to Navasheva port, and further onward it can go anywhere. Our Utkarsh has put up our contact details in the chat, and you can always reach to us anytime. And if you still have any questions, we are here. Some more time you can put up, or we can conclude the session. Rashmi Rao has raised the hand. Maybe we'll unmute. You can ask your question now.
Hi, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Just the thing that now e-way bill is going on in e-invoice. I would like to ask one question about e-way bill.
Yes,
What if suppose 1 lakh of e-way bill has been generated for B2C and the return stock is about 80,000 and only 20 is sold. So the sold one is 20 and 80 will be already generated and we can't cancel the e-way bill for some reason. So that will be
I'm interrupting here. Sorry. See,
Yeah.
it's one invoice. If the material worth 1 lakh is going, see, there is no way you are saying that 80,000 is delivered, that 20,000 is cancelled. The way you need to do is 20,000 is a credit note. The receipt which is written. So an invoice cannot be partitioned. So you made a supply of 1 lakh, customer wanted only 80,000. So the 20,000 return by way of credit note is what you should be doing, and not by way of like splitting the invoice.
Yes, sir. That's why I said it was not a B2B sale e-invoice. E-way bill. It is B2C only for e-way bill.
No problem. It is answer is the same.
There will be multiple. If you are URP customers, like we do line sales in commodities and all, then.
So that is where I'm saying you have made a sale. The sale happened. E-invoice not applicable since it is B2C. E-way bill is applicable since value is more than 50,000.
Yes.
After the reaching, customer said, I don't want 20,000. You are returning back with the goods for 20,000 rupees. It's a sales return. You still need to do an e-way bill, which is inward. You need to do that.
Return e-way bill.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So I think we can conclude the today's session. The coordinates are here. I thank each and everyone for joining with us today's session, and we'll keep you posted with our updated sessions. And in case if you have not joined our WhatsApp community, where we will be sharing you GST updates, a quick update of various GST that's happening day in, day out, is generally posted, and we don't spam, we don't send any huge information. You can join our WhatsApp community. Yeah. With this, we'll conclude the day. Thank you, Utkarsh. Thank you, Bharti. Thank you, Vasist. Thank you, Azhar, for doing a wonderful demo today. If you have any questions which are still unanswered, do write to our support. Our expert team will answer your queries.